You could be a base or even a back spot. Yeah, how's your flexibility? What are you doing tonight? Nothing, yeah. Why don't you come over for a sleepover?
I just wanted to say thank you so much for helping me out earlier at practice today. What exactly is going to happen during the sleepover?
I was really hoping to hook up with Ava at the sleepover tonight.
Where are the other girls? Her and the other girls can't make it.
Harlow, if you want to hook up with Ava, you know you've got to move fast, right? Like, she's already talking to Liana.
So, why don't you come cuddle with me? You look cold. Yeah. Where should I sleep tonight?
Right here, silly.
In our same beds?
Oh, yeah.
So, do I get on purpose?
Well, of course. Would you care if maybe we just, like, stayed the night here?
I mean, if we can't go to the sleepover, you might as well.
All the girls on the squad are lesbians. That's why we all have sleepovers. It's secret code.
Look at yourself. You're beautiful. You just have to have a little more confidence in building experiences. Like, I just feel like it'd be so hot to have you, like, boss me around. Sure, let's deal with it. Do you want to try? Everyone's gonna love you because you're freaking amazing, dude. And you're, like, so hot. So, once you get her alone, I don't like her, really.
We're here together, so we don't have anything to worry about. I guess you're right.
Scene. 3 functions as the emotional heart of the anthology, distilling the film's larger preoccupations with safety, recognition, and quiet revelation into an intimate encounter shaped by weather, isolation, and the gradual permission to be seen. And from its opening moments, the scene situates intimacy within care rather than spectacle, as Ava's arrival soaked from the storm immediately frames her vulnerability as physical discomfort that invites tenderness without demanding it, while Liana's instinctive response to help her dry off establishes a dynamic of attentiveness that feels natural, unforced, and rooted in concern rather than performance. And this initial exchange resonates strongly with lesbian audiences familiar with how caretaking often becomes the first socially acceptable language of attraction, particularly in environments where women's closeness is tolerated so long as it is framed as practical or nurturing, and the absence of the other girls due to flooding quietly collapses. The protective buffer of group presence, leaving the 2 women alone not through intention but circumstance, a narrative move that mirrors how queer intimacy often emerges not through bold pursuit, but through contingency, when external forces create space for connection that might otherwise remain deferred. And importantly, the characters acknowledge this isolation without alarm, signaling an underlying trust that allows the moment to unfold without fear, and the casual decision to watch a movie together reinforces the ordinariness of the setting, grounding the scene in domestic familiarity that contrasts with cultural narratives that position lesbian connection as inherently dramatic or disruptive, and the sharing of candy and conversation about habits and preferences further deepens this sense of ease, illustrating how intimacy grows through small disclosures rather than grand declarations. And when Ava expresses disappointment that the others could not attend, Liana's reassurance reframes the situation as one of abundance rather than lack, suggesting time and opportunity rather than scarcity, a perspective that subtly counters the internalized belief many queer women carry that connection is rare and must be seized urgently. And this moment speaks to the film's broader critique of how women are socialized to minimize their own desires by reframing longing as patience, often at the cost of emotional clarity, and the invitation to sit closer for warmth becomes a pivotal gesture precisely because it is framed as comfort rather than desire, allowing both women to negotiate proximity without confronting the cultural scripts that would otherwise demand explanation. And this resonates deeply within lesbian experience, where touch between women is often permitted but emotionally ambiguous, creating spaces where longing can exist safely but also painfully unspoken. And the scene's attention to environmental factors like thunder, lightning, and power outages externalizes the internal uncertainty the characters feel, using the storm not as a threat but as a container that intensifies awareness. And the use of glow lights and flashlights becomes symbolically rich, representing small chosen sources of illumination in the absence of stable structures. Much like queer women often rely on each other for guidance and reassurance when institutional support is unreliable or absent. And Liana's calm familiarity with such disruptions contrasts with Ava's unease, introducing a subtle difference in lived experience that mirrors real-world disparities within queer communities shaped by geography, class, or family background. And this exchange allows Ava to articulate fear without shame, while Liana's reassurance affirms safety without condescension, modeling a relational ethic grounded in mutual respect. And when Ava reflects on her past involvement in cheerleading and admits that her interest was less about the activity and more about watching the girls, the scene gently approaches self-recognition, framing queerness not as a sudden realization but as a pattern retrospectively understood. And this moment is especially resonant for lesbian viewers who may recognize how early attractions were often misinterpreted or minimized in environments that did not offer language or validation. And Liana's response, revealing that most of the squad shares this identity, transforms what could have been a moment of exposure into one of belonging, reframing queerness as communal rather than isolating. And the notion of sleepovers as a secret code is particularly telling, highlighting how queer women often create covert systems of recognition and safety within heteronormative spaces, relying on shared understanding rather than explicit declaration. And Ava's relief at not being excluded underscores the persistent fear of rejection that shadows many queer women even in adulthood, reflecting how conditional acceptance often feels. And Liana's affirmation that Ava fits in even better than expected positions queerness, not as a liability, but as an asset, challenging narratives that frame difference as something to be tolerated rather than valued, and the reassurance that follows is understated yet profound, emphasizing continuity and support rather than transformation. And as the lights return and the immediate crisis passes, the scene resists the impulse to end the intimacy, instead allowing the conversation to evolve naturally, signaling that connection does not require heightened circumstances to sustain itself. And the discussion about whether to continue watching the movie becomes a metaphor for consent and desire, with both women explicitly checking comfort and interest, modeling a communication style rooted in care and agency that stands in contrast to cultural depictions that conflate romance with inevitability. And Ava's expression of feeling a strong connection is met with equal affirmation, reinforcing the theme of mutual recognition. That runs throughout the film, and the exchange of compliments is gentle and reciprocal, avoiding objectification by focusing on presence and appreciation rather than consumption. And this approach aligns with the film's commitment to portraying lesbian intimacy as emotionally grounded and ethically meaningful. And while the latter portion of the scene includes dialogue that could easily be framed sensationally, the film's emphasis remains on emotional closeness and affirmation, using language of softness and support rather than explicit action. And the line about sisters supporting each other's bodies is especially significant, invoking chosen family and collective care, concepts central to queer survival and resilience. And this framing situates their connection within a lineage of women caring for women, resisting narratives that isolate lesbian love as exceptional or deviant, and instead presenting it as part of a broader continuum of relational ethics. And from a critical perspective, Scene 3 succeeds because it refuses to rush toward resolution, allowing ambiguity and tenderness to coexist, acknowledging that recognition does not always lead immediately to certainty, and this restraint reflects real-world pressures queer women face to remain legible and non-threatening, often delaying expression to preserve safety or harmony, and the scene's careful pacing honors that reality without romanticizing repression, offering instead a portrait of patience and presence. And for women beyond the LGBTQ+ community, the scene's themes of seeking warmth, fearing vulnerability, and longing for reassurance resonate universally, illustrating how emotional labor and self-silencing are not exclusive to queer experience, but are intensified by it. And the film's refusal to sensationalize women's closeness critiques a culture that oscillates between erasure and fetishization, insisting instead on seriousness and respect. And by grounding the scene in everyday gestures and conversation, the film asserts that women's love for one another belongs in ordinary spaces, not just dramatic narratives. And ultimately, Scene 3 contributes to the anthology's broader argument that visibility begins internally, with the courage to acknowledge connection and accept care, and that becoming visible to another woman can be a profound act of self-recognition in a world that still struggles to fully honor the depth and legitimacy of women-centered relationships, making this scene not about provocation or taboo, but about truth, connection, and the quiet resilience that sustains queer women across environments shaped by uncertainty and change.